I'd like to welcome everyone to our performance this evening of Swami Kriyananda's very inspiring play, The Jewel in the Lotus. Swamiji first wrote this play in 1954, 2 years after Yoganandaji had his Mahasamadhi, and over the years he has refined it and developed it and made the characters more interesting until now we have this version that we will perform for you this evening. I'd like to read just a little bit from what Swamiji has written to describe the play. Om Mani Padme Om, hail to the jewel in the lotus, is the sacred mantra of the Tibetans. In India, the lotus is viewed as a symbol of spiritual unfoldment. The lotus has its roots in earthly mud, but as it grows upward in aspiration toward the light, its petals open out in a beautiful flower. The Jewel in the Lotus is a play about how we, like the lotus, can transcend our current realities and offer up our lives in the successful pursuit of our highest aspirations, in this way fulfilling the very jewel of our desires. The setting of this play is an Indian village in the Himalayas, some 200 years from now. A spiritual seeker has been wandering the mountains for years in search of his guru, Paramahansa Yogananda. He visits a small Himalayan village. There he shares his teacher's wisdom through stories both inspiring and instructive about the lives of great saints. The villagers find their love for God awakened and their lives transformed. In the end, they and the storyteller alike realize that perfect happiness, once they'd set their hearts on it, was closer than they'd ever imagined. Yoganandaji is a great master who lived in the United States for 32 years until his passing in 1952. He came not to show us how great he was, but as a living example of what each of us can become. He taught people from all walks of life how to achieve the actual experience of God in their lives. Yoganandaji promised that in his next incarnation, it would be after 250 years when the action here takes place. The stories in the play are true ones, taken from his life. Yogananda speaks to us through the words of this play. To see it is to be uplifted, along with its characters, out of your everyday consciousness and filled with spiritual longing and joy. With delightful humor, deep wisdom, and divine power, the jewel in the lotus will touch you profoundly and thrill you with the reality and the realizability of your own divine destiny. We dedicate this performance to Swamiji and to his great guru, whose Mahasamadhi some 55 years ago we celebrate this weekend.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama
Rama Krishna. All this chanting and caterwauling, that's enough to drive a person mad.
Ah, to be mad with God
Eh? Mad. That's what I said, yes. Mad these people drive here. Come here, boy. Come, Kanta. It'll soon be dark. If we go any farther to escape those maniacs in the village, we'll only be risking our lives, breaking trails where no civilized man ever trod before.
But, dear, this is a well-trodden path. Our people often pass this way.
I spoke of civilized human beings. Would you call our villagers civilized when they can revel in such bedlam? A fine situation this, when virgin wilderness can seem almost tame by comparison with our so-called civilization.
They're singing to God, dear.
Well, if I were God, I feel merely annoyed that people spent so much time demanding my attention. Tell me, how would you have felt if Narayan here, as a little boy, pestered you night and day with cries of "Mama, Mama"? Exasperated, right? Well, believe you me, that's how God feels when people pester him with their howling. He's got more important things to do than to listen all day to raucous cries of "Rama! Rama!"
Like what, dear? Listening to you when you pray to him for money?
Why, what's wrong with that? At least it's a prayer with some sense to it. Besides, there's something in it for him, too. He knows I donate money to the temple.
Oh, yes.
Hard-earned money, mind you. My money.
But, dear, you once told us you donated money only so that the priests would ask God to make you even richer.
Well, they get their percentage. Mark my words, employing people is the way to make honest men of them.
Your fellow merchants must derive great inspiration, dear, for your concern for other men's honesty.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, and I set them a good example of honesty too, mind you. A very good example. Within reason, of course. One must also be practical. But I may safely say I'm as honest as any merchant in the bazaar. I work hard to make this a decent world to live in.
Our own little corner of it, at least.
So why shouldn't God listen to my prayers, eh? You want to know something? I'll bet he's grateful to me. Ha! All that money I give him.
Father, he already is all that money you give him. How can donating it to the temple make him any richer?
Don't be naive, boy. Listen, I'm older and a great deal wiser than you. Believe me, temples wouldn't exist if God didn't have a pretty sharp eye for profit. The divine merchant, that's how we, the wise, see him. Giving only as good as he gets. Oh, he's too clever to be taken in by all this Rama business. Just look at it this way. What are all those empty-handed devotees giving him in terms of good, solid value? Ramadama! He's no fool, I tell you. He respects a good deal, cash on the line.
Dearest, true devotees would never want to make deals with him.
The more fools they.
But the scriptures
The
say...
scriptures? Haven't you heard that even the devil quotes the scriptures?
The scriptures say that all God wants from us is our love.
My dear, don't go subverting the values of our fine ancient family in front of our son. Why do you think I brought him up here anyway? For the fun of it? Braving oncoming darkness and wild animals and maybe getting lost. For the fun of it? No. I brought him here out of love for him and protect him from those madmen in the village on whom love for God seems to act as rice wine acts on more sober persons.
I'm sure you have the noblest of motives, dear. But aren't you also just possibly afraid of losing a prospective junior partner in the business?
Well, that too. Well, but of course that. How can Narayan best please God? Obviously, by living a decent, respectable life, working for me in my shop. Well, compare that with running around foolishly singing. Oh,
Father. Father,
Krishna.
even you know that's not the chant.
Well, what of it? They're all the same. Besides, I need an accountant. No, I mean an honest one. That fellow I have in there now has been stealing me blind.
I thought you said employing a person is the way to make an honest man of him. But tell me, Father, how is taking a job in your shop going to help me do what I really want, which is to find God?
How is it going to help you? Did you hear him? He asked, how is it going to help him? Here, I've been preaching lofty truths to you ever since we reached this God-forsaken wilderness. And you ask how working for me is going to help you find God? My dear boy, it's perfectly obvious. Didn't you yourself just say that God is the money that we spend? Mm-hmm. Well then, the more you have of money, the more you have of God. Simple. We'd better watch this boy more closely. He's been getting some strange ideas.
But God is in everything, Father. Why limit him to money?
Because, why? Because, because the Bhagavad Gita says, that God is especially manifested wherever there is the greatest beauty. And what could be more beautiful than money? Oh, gold coins. Their clinking sound always reminds me of temple bells.
To me, the most beautiful sound in the world is a group of devotees singing God's name.
Don't you think our boy might have worse notions than that, dear?
It's plain I'm outnumbered. I should hire a bodyguard to protect me from these unceasing aggressions. Look, boy, all I'm trying to do is to ensure your future happiness. Don't you understand? The time to seek God is when you're old, financially secure, and have nothing better to do. Otherwise, you'll just be a wandering beggar, like that storyteller who's come lately to our village.
I've never seen him beg.
He's poor. Take it from me, son. He must
Oh,
beg.
but he tells the most wonderful stories.
Oh, especially from the lives of the saints.
The saints of all religions, not of one religion only. My favorites are those where he tells of the love of great souls for God.
Ah, such beautiful stories those are.
Oh, Father, why did we have to leave the village tonight, of all nights?
There's a special ceremony to commemorate the love expressed in all religions for God.
And we wanted to attend it.
What? And leave me at home to worry what might become of you? Oh, I know all about it. That's exactly why I've brought you here. The ceremony hasn't exactly gone unadvertised. The howling and the wailing have been increasing for days. You talk about the beauty of singing God's name. Tonight, the so-called singing has reached such a peak, it reminds me of a tribe of cats on a wall. And the party isn't even scheduled to start for another hour and a half. It's too much to expect a sane man to be around when that kicks off.
Father, can't we just accept that we have different tastes?
Taste? That's got nothing to do with taste. That's a matter of principle. If I must be frank, boy, I'm afraid of that storyteller corrupting you. That's why we've come here. Oh, there's witchcraft in the air tonight, I tell you. Why, I even saw old Gupta Sahib next door, the most conscientious miser in town, give a penny to a beggar. I don't like it, I tell you. Something is very wrong. The old values are being shaken. And I blame it all on that storyteller. Nothing's been the same since he arrived.
Dear, you can't accuse him of corrupting anyone.
No. When he chants and sings and talks so sweetly that all the customers leave our shops, and when the more weak-minded shopkeepers leave with them, why, before you know it, the whole village will disintegrate. Cats on a wall.
From now on, cats howling will always remind me of God. Thank you, Father.
In his gentle way, this boy is as hard-headed as I am. But tell me this, what if everyone followed the storyteller?
I can think of worse possibilities.
Now, dear, you know it's not likely. Besides, they say he likes to walk alone.
No doubt, leaving everything behind him in shambles. Such people usually have to get out of town fast and alone.
Oh, not in shambles, Father.
And what else? Our shops would be empty while people roam the streets, howling like a cat on like a pack of wolves. and this latest craze he's brought us, this Yogananda fever, I call it.
Yogananda helped people to understand life's true goal, inner communion with God. In God, he said, the saints of all religions are one.
The storyteller loves Yogananda for that great master's love for God. Is that so bad?
Bad? Can you, my own son, seriously ask me such a question? Why, Yogananda's whole life was based on a lie.
A lie?
Just look at it this way. When you pay good, honest, hard-earned money for something, at least you see what you're getting, a shirt maybe, or a brass bucket. Well, this Yogananda claimed that God is even more real, get this, even more real than a shirt or a bucket.
Oh, Mesh.
I ask you, what incredible nonsense! You can't even see God. You can't feel him. Tell me, what color is he? I mean, it's all right to talk about God vaguely, as many do, but this Yogananda really overdid it. Why? He actually put it in writing that everyone can see God. It's bad enough that a few of our sadhus have said this sort of thing quietly, but to broadcast this nonsense to the whole world? Why, it's enough to ruin India's good name.
The world has become more peaceful as a result of his teachings.
Our dearest treasure, God's ever near, the one friend who loves us without
It's
any...
almost too late to find any flowers.
Oh, but we must find at least a few. How can we attend the ceremony empty-handed? Aw, the garland I made was so beautiful. If only our cow hadn't eaten it.
Well, the Bhagavad Gita says the Lord accepts even one flower, even a leaf, if it's offered with devotion.
God is our Father, our Mother too. Ramu! Ramu! Look who's here!
Romesh, Babu, Didi, older sister. What are you doing in these woods? It'll soon be getting dark.
Ramu, Gita, I brought my family here to escape the singing, and here you bring it to us.
You can't be serious, Romesh Babu. This is such a joyous evening. It's the anniversary of Yogananda's Mahasamadhi, when he left this world.
I thought the evening was meant as a sort of holiness inventory of all saints.
The ceremony is for all saints, yes, but the inspiration for this devotion is Paramahansa Yogananda's. That's why we're holding it on his anniversary. Sri Yogananda taught that in God all are equal. No one greater, no one any lesser.
He taught, too, that we should love the saints, not for themselves, but for their love for each of us. In this way, he said, we too may come to love God.
Have you heard? There's even a chance Yogananda may have returned to this world.
What, on a spaceship?
No. I mean reincarnated in another body.
Is it possible?
Oh, may it be true.
That storyteller's behind this somewhere, I'll warrant you.
Oh, indeed, yes. He also told us that Yogananda promised in his next life he would live here in these very Himalayas.
To think of it. He might be in this very portion of them. He might be right up there on top of Lotus Mountain.
How my heart is grieved ever since the storyteller first told us about him, that we couldn't have lived 200 years ago when Yogananda lived. Our lives are so caught up in littleness. Oh, if only great saints lived in our midst. Yogananda promised to come back after 200 years. Did you know? The storyteller told us so.
Oh, infinite Lord, the songs that you sing, thrilling the night of Maya with your love. May we hear those sweet strains in the night in our own souls. Let all the world stand still. Let not wind, nor rain, nor sound of calling bird invade our silence. May your songs possess our hearts. May they steal like moonlight into the dark glades of our souls, bathing the restless shadows with your luminous peace.
Ramu, you, a respected candy maker.
No candy could taste so sweet as the Lord's name, now that I've learned not only to sing it, but to hear it everywhere in all nature.
Oh, I must have a talk with that storyteller.
Listen, the bells in the village. Only an hour until the ceremony begins.
We'd better hurry or we won't find any flowers.
It's already after sundown.
Peace be with my friends.
Peace also to you, friend.
Ramu, come back. Why have you come up here, friend? Aren't you leading the ceremony in the temple this evening?
Not tonight, friend. You have priests to fulfill that function. I'm not a pujari.
Look, I found some. The storyteller.
He says he won't be coming to the temple this evening.
But why not? It's because of you that we're having the ceremony.
Because of me, perhaps, but not for me. It is for your inspiration it is being held. I've done my share in leading you to that inspiration.
But can't you at least join us? It will mean so much to everyone to have you there.
God will be there, friend. In your chants and in your meditation, during your inner communion, I would be merely an intruder.
Intruder? But it is through you that we have learned to love God.
It is through you that we have learned to love all saints.
It is through you that we have learned of Sri Paramahansa Yogananda.
It is through you we have learned the very meaning of life.
I'm as grateful for these blessings as you are. But of what use is the door once it has been passed through? My path lies in solitude. The time has come for me to take to that path once again.
You don't mean that you're leaving us?
Didn't I tell you? He's getting out before the roof collapses.
But how can we carry on if you leave us so soon?
The truth is in you, friend. Why seek it outside yourself? Even if you tried to, you'd never find it there.
what you say about the truth being in Gita here interests me. On the whole, I wouldn't call you hopelessly wrong. Still, I recall one absolute whopper she told once in school years ago. It was in history class.
Friend, the truth is in you too.
Oh, come now. I mean, now, don't misunderstand me. Oh, I may dress things up a little occasionally to make them look, you know, presentable. But everyone knows I'm honest. Still, well, I mean, we're friends here. Why exaggerate?
When I say the truth is in you, I mean that you are the soul, the immortal Atman.
Just what do you mean by that?
I mean that God, the supreme truth, is in you.
Aha! Did you hear him, boy? From now on, you better listen to me.
He means God is in everyone, Father. In everything.
But the Bhagavad Gita says that God is especially manifested wherever there is the greatest beauty.
Why, that's exactly what I just said to Narayan here. How like the temple bells, I said to him, is the fairy clinking of gold coins.
To me, God's beauty is most perfectly manifested in His saints.
Excuse me. Please, excuse me. Beauty, you said. Saints, you said. Am I right, sir? Have I misquoted you?
No?
All right. Now then, sir, I must tell you, you've left me a little confused. I mean, saints and beauty are two things one wouldn't naturally pair together. For one thing, most of the saints one sees these days have so much hair coming out of them that it's hard to tell whether they're beautiful or not. And from what one can see, beauty isn't exactly the first word that springs to mind. Scarecrow's more like it.
It's clear that you have yet to see a real saint. But in any case, I was speaking more of a spiritual beauty, of a radiance in the eyes, a gentleness in the smile.
Oh, yes, from his pictures. I think that Sri Yogananda must have been the most beautiful human being who ever lived.
Outwardly as well as inwardly.
But why bother with such people? Yogananda has been dead for 200 years. And that illustrates a point. Most of the saints one hears of are long gone. And even if they're alive and famous, the crowds swarm around them so thickly one can't even get close enough to them for a normal, decent blessing on an important cash sale set. No. Running to the saints is in any case just a way of shirking responsibility.
Oh, no. The scriptures say that spending time with the saints is man's first responsibility.
No, sister, your husband's right. Too many people run to the saints to excuse their own spiritual laziness.
He agrees with me.
One time, in the ashram of Paramahansa Yogananda, there was a young disciple who joked all the time and played pranks and generally acted more childish than childlike. The master one day reprimanded him for being so light-minded. The boy answered, "I know my weakness, master, and I want to overcome it. But how can I do so without your blessings?"
What a beautiful answer.
A true disciple.
The master replied, "But my blessings are there already. God's blessings are there. It's your blessings that are lacking." Faith, you see, must be consciously exercised. If it makes one passive, it isn't faith, it's only wishful thinking. The Christian Bible says that faith without works is dead. Works means the creative exercise of faith, inwardly as well as outwardly.
Oh! Did you hear him, everyone? You all think me so ignorant in spiritual matters, and here, your own teacher agrees with me and not with you. How do you like that, eh? I keep telling them, God is everywhere. So why, I say, give up good, honest business to find him.
Some of Yogananda's most advanced disciples were successful businessmen. He taught that the power of concentration, so necessary for success in business, is important also for deep meditation.
Uh-huh. Did you hear that? Stick with me, boy, if you want to find God.
Well, however those disciples found God, I'm sure it wasn't by meditating on money.
And why not? I keep telling him, God is in money too. He just doesn't understand.
God is everywhere. Still, we must realize him first before we can see him everywhere.
A mere quibble. I realize him in money.
We must realize him first in the self.
True, true. It is within myself I realize that what I like is money. Oh, this man speaks like the very angels.
But he hasn't said one should take up business to find God. He's only told us that whoever we are, God can come to us if we devote our present abilities to seeking him.
Well, one must expect minor differences, even among the wise. But in the main, we are agreed, this wise storyteller and I, we both say God can be found in business. The method is secondary. Friend, why are you leaving the village at this late hour? Come, spend the night at our house. Leave by daylight if you must. Otherwise, you might miss your path.
Thank you for your kindness, friend. But many long months I've wandered these mountains alone. Their darkness and their solitude hold no more terrors for me now. As for paths, I hold to none. What I'm seeking will be found far from any man-made trails.
We know these parts better than you. If what you're looking for is anywhere around here, perhaps we can help you find it.
Thank you, friend. But my quest is a private one. I must pursue it alone.
You have often spoken to us of going on alone. I too sometimes feel drawn to such a path. Yet in your talks in the village, you've also stressed men's need for the company of saints. How can the value of solitude be reconciled with this need to depend on others?
A bedridden patient needs a doctor, not for something else to depend on besides his bed, but because the doctor can help him back onto his own feet.
I see. Then the company of saints is helpful only until one has learned to walk alone?
Yes and no. The more you go within, the more you find their blessings inside yourself. Thus, of course, you depend less and less on their outward company. Still, you keep their company in your heart.
But which is more important, to keep the company of saints or the company of God?
Of God, surely. But please ask yourself, do you know God?
No.
How then can you keep his company? Don't you see? By concentrating on the saints who do know him, you attract their state of consciousness. Still, of course, it is God alone you should seek, even in their company. To want anything less from them would be like digging for granite in a gold mine.
There's a point that sometimes puzzles me. God, they say, is everywhere. In a way, then, it seems we should seek him everywhere. In every flower, in every tree, at every wayside shrine. And yet, God is also one. From this standpoint, should we try and see only him and not love him through his manifestations? Which is the better path?
Both ways are good, if it is the one God you are seeking. The most important thing for the devotee, however, is to be freed from delusion. And what is delusion, if not attachment to that which is not? The Lord hides behind his creation. Nature is real only in that it expresses him. Yet nature is our natural focus of awareness. It is better to imagine God in the forms we hold dear than to deny them altogether. Granting this fact, it is better to concentrate on the saints than on inanimate objects. They at least are conscious of the dreamer behind the dream. It is good to meditate on the lives of the saints. It is better, however, to follow the example of only one of them To leave a building, does one require many doors? That is one reason the scriptures stress the need for a guru or a personal guide to the infinite.
Is that why you speak so much about Paramahansa Yogananda? I've wondered. I mean, I assume the saints all own stock, so to speak, in the same enterprise. It isn't possible for any of them to corner the market, is it?
Not this market. It's too big for any corner to hold it. But I myself found the guide I was seeking in Paramahansa Yogananda. I speak of him as one might refer to a mountain if one wanted to illustrate the principle of height. One needn't use many mountains to illustrate the same principle.
Yogananda was tall then, eh?
Not physically, but spiritually, he was a giant. Though I speak of him especially, I emphasize his teachings that other free souls, messengers from God into the dark prison of this world, were fully as great as he. That is one reason his ceremony this evening is dedicated also to all saints. There's no rivalry in God. Yet, I love Sri Yogananda. His life was such a perfect balance of mystical vision and practicality. And his message, more than most teachers, was to the whole world. My love for him is far more than just personal. To me, he epitomizes the greatness of all saints and the potential greatness of all men.
I'm finding it a bit difficult to visualize a spiritual giant. Won't you please tell us more about him by way of illustration?
Oh, please do.
But I may have yet far to walk this evening, and you all have a ceremony to attend. Think how many stories I've told you already.
Ah, but Romesh hasn't heard them.
Would it be fair to leave even one humble seeker uninstructed?
Gita's right. Humility is the one quality I've always been most proud of. Why? Whenever I see someone poorer than myself, and that's everyone in our village, I assure you, I think there, but for the grace of God and a little skill on my part, go I. Please, stay a while. We have something in common, you and I, and I'd like to understand this spiritual giant of yours better, since you respect him so deeply.
Oh, please, stay a while.
Very well. I shall stay just a little bit longer. No time is wasted, surely, that is spent in speaking of Paramahansa Yogananda. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Guru is Brahma, the creator. Guru is Vishnu, the liberator. Guru is Maheshwara, the liberator. Truly, Guru is the Supreme Spirit. I bow to thee, O Guru. People make a grave mistake when they think of the true Guru as an ordinary man, wiser than they perhaps, but otherwise limited in time and space even as they are. Indeed, they even err when they think of him as separate from themselves. For the true Guru, having realized his oneness with God, resides always in the devotee's heart. He comes into this world not to show others how different he is from them, but to inspire them with a sense of their own divinity. The true Guru plays a strangely dual role. On the one hand, he lives as a man among men, laughing, joking, eating with them, as well as teaching them, encouraging them, in other words, to see their humanity not as a barrier, but as a bridge to divine attainments. On the other hand, he carefully reminds his devotees, and more so, the more they advance spiritually, that neither he nor they are this physical body, that in essence they are the Supreme Spirit. Yogananda used often to say, I killed Yogananda long ago. No one dwells in this temple now but God. A disciple one time praised him for his humility. How can there be humility, the Master inquired, when there is no consciousness of ego? One of the saddest mistakes people make is to compare the saints in an effort to prove their own guru or their own patron saint the wisest. What a travesty of the truth that all truly wise men have taught, that God is the supreme reality, the sole reality. A master is one who has merged his ego consciousness in that infinite realization. One should meditate on the lives of the masters then, not in order to increase one's consciousness of sectarian differences, but to demolish it. In this way, I invite you to consider the life of Paramahansa Yogananda, truly a star of the first magnitude in the heavens of history.
I've always thought these holy men wanted to show everyone how specially holy they were. I confess, we merchants have no objection to letting others, well, a few others, know how rich we are.
To the saints, such considerations are meaningless. Long before he returned to this world in that beloved form, Sri Yogananda had achieved final freedom from all meshes of ego. No karma of his own brought him back, but only purest compassion for suffering humanity. He was what is known in the scriptures as an avatar, a divine incarnation, fulfilling an ancient promise to return again and again into this world, so long as, to quote him, one stray brother was left weeping by the wayside.
Such compassion is inconceivable.
I'm beginning to see what you meant by spiritual giant.
Sri Yogananda played a more human role than most avatars. It was his task to awaken people in a land where God communion had been all but forgotten. Seeing his life in retrospect, one is amazed at his accomplishments. He took mere spiritual children, as it were, and raised them all the way to divine maturity. No other master, to my knowledge, has worked so earnestly with so many different levels of disciples. Many of his disciples found God in that lifetime. Many others achieved liberation even among those who were drawn to him after he left this world. To meditate on the episodes of his human life is to be inspired with the divine power he radiated. To meditate on his childhood search for God is to be inspired with intense devotion. To meditate on his adolescent years is to be inspired to renounce selfish ambitions and live only to serve God in all. To meditate on the early years of his ministry in the West is to become filled with the great Guru's energy and joy. To meditate on his later years is to become filled with dispassion, compassion, and wisdom. Love and joy were the chief qualities he manifested in his life. Even his childhood pranks rang with the silent laughter of God.
Oh, did he play pranks too?
Indeed, yes, and why not? Isn't God a God of joy?
I wonder what he would have thought of my Ramya when he was little for dropping water from the roof on a pompous neighbor. Oh, disgraceful child.
Yogananda did much the same thing once as a young boy, only it was dry cow dung on the head of a drunken policeman.
So, you might have a saint in that delinquent monster of yours yet. It pains me to have to remind you that the so-called pompous neighbor on that inauspicious occasion was my humble self.
Oh, so it was. I'd completely forgotten. Oh, Romesh Babu, please forgive me.
All right, all right. Only I hope this saint of yours had his more sober moments.
Even his childish pranks had a deeper purpose, to instill needed lessons in people who were perhaps hard-hearted, or perhaps too sure of themselves.
Pompous.
But he never acted except with divine love, even when he reprimanded his disciples. How could he do otherwise when he saw all beings as his own self?
All beings? Even animals?
Indeed, yes. Would you like to hear how his love once conquered a wild and hungry tiger?
Yes.
Oh, do
Yes.
tell us about it.
Very well. But if I'm to tell a story, let's all gather around more closely. Romesh Babu, sit here, please. Narayan.
How did he conquer the tiger? Was it with the magic mantra? I've heard that great yogis possess such powers.
No, sister. His was the power of pure love. Once in the company of a group of youngsters, he hired a driver with a cart pulled by a pair of cows. At the driver's suggestion, they traveled deep into the heart of a nearby jungle. Unknown to the master, this part of the jungle was the haunt of large and ferocious tigers. As darkness was falling, they found an abandoned hut. Beside it was a stall for the cows. It seemed a safe place to spend the night. Leaving the driver to put away the cows, the master and the boys entered the hut. They were soon joined by the driver. Darkness crept into those deep jungle lanes stealthily like a thief. Day, suddenly timid and afraid, fled for protection toward the vanished sun. The pleasant calls of sun-loving birds and beasts soon gave way to the strange, lonely noises of nocturnal creatures. To these were soon added the terrifying roars of tigers as they hungrily stalked the jungle byways. About an hour passed. Then the occupants of the hut heard a growling and rustling sound nearby. They looked out a window. The moonlight in the clearing was just bright enough for them to see a huge Bengal tiger approaching, its tail twitching in anticipation. That tiger's going after our cows, stammered the driver. Prudently, he'd already placed the others between himself and the door. Didn't you close the stall door? The master asked. The foolish man had forgotten. If those cows were eaten, they might never get home again. The master asked if anyone would accompany him as he went out to close the stall door. Well, you can imagine the general stampede to join him. Finding no volunteers, he went out alone into the night. For protection, he took with him a lantern. But as soon as he stepped out of the door, a gust of wind extinguished the flame. No time remained to light it again. Alone into the night the master went. The tiger, seeing this intruder step between it and the cows, naturally shifted its concentration from the cows to the master. A cruel smile played on the killer's face. A hungry gleam shone in its eyes. The master looked at it. No thought of fear crossed his mind. Instead, with love in his heart, he held to the thought that it was God he was seeing in the form of that tiger. Slowly the killer approached. The power of love flowed to it from the master's eyes. Suddenly, what a miracle! Instead of springing, the beast rolled affectionately at the guru's feet. Love had conquered it. Its huge tongue lolled out as it yawned a few times. After a while, it got up and walked away peacefully into the jungle. The stall door was closed. You may be sure that when the master returned to that hut, he scolded that driver for taking them to such a dangerous place. But the remainder of the night, both cows and people spent in uninterrupted peace.
Would that I might have been even that tiger, just to have met Sri Yogananda and felt the divine love flowing from his lotus eyes.
How much better to be a real tiger made that way by God than to be a human tiger preying viciously on the lives of others.
Such tigers must be much more difficult to transform.
And how much greater the miracle, surely, that does transform them. Sri Yogananda must have met and changed many such people.
Oh, many, many. A few actually even tried to harm him.
No.
But on them, what a sweet revenge he had. Did I ever tell you of the time a gunman was sent to kill him in New York?
No.
It was after a lecture at Carnegie Hall, during the course of which he had exposed certain powerful, wealthy men who had been exploiting the poor. America was in the midst of a depression in those days, and exploitation of the poor meant virtually their ruin. His friends warned him not to go home alone, but the master said simply, "God is with me." As he was walking down a darkened street, the gunman came up behind him. Pressing a pistol into his back, he said, "Why did you talk that way about those people?" The master turned and faced him. "All men are God's children," he said. "He loves them all equally. How can you expect him to be pleased when his rich children take advantage of his poor ones?" Can you imagine talking that way to someone who's been paid to kill you? Then with all forgiving love in his eyes, he looked at this man and he said, "Why do you live the way you do? You aren't happy. It is time that you changed." Suddenly, in tones charged with divine power, he cried, "I demand that Satan come out of you." The man began to tremble. "What are you doing to me?" he cried. Weeping, he continued, "I can't. I just can't go back to that way of living any longer." His life was completely changed. Is it any wonder that the scriptures say, "Shanamape sajana sangati reka pavate pavanavatarane nauka." One moment in the company of a saint can be your raft over the ocean of delusion.
How strange that anyone could wish to harm such a man of God.
But aren't good and evil always at war?
And wherever anyone is supremely good, the resistance of evil people is that much greater. Look at the lives of all men and women of God.
How those who hurt Sri Yogananda must have suffered, knowing that he loved them so deeply.
I know of at least one who did.
Won't you tell us more?
He was one of the worst whose paths ever crossed that of the Blessed Master. He did everything he could to interfere with the spread of the Guru's work. Like a tiger raging on the outskirts of a jungle village, he prowled in ceaseless search of human prey. Like the fires of cruelty in the yellow eyes of a wolf, there burned in his appeaseless heart the flames of envy and hatred. He told lies about the Master, spread false, slanderous tales about his work, tried as often as he could to turn followers away from the path.
Yet you say he suffered. Why then did he continue to do those things?
Ah, my friend, the dewdrop, afraid of being drawn into the sun, slips trembling for shelter into the heart of a lotus. Even so this man, fearing the magnetic power of the Guru's love, sought shelter in hatred. His deeds bore ample testimony to the perfection of that hatred.
Yet the Master loved him.
One day, shortly before the Master's passing, he saw this man again. With sweetest compassion shining in his eyes, he looked at his old offender, smiled gently and said, "Remember, I will always love you." At last, at long last, what a change was wrought at last by those few simple words, breaking through at one point in the solid fortress of this soul's resistance. Divine love soon destroyed every rampart. Years it had taken to resist. The defeat, once started, required only days. Oh, dearest pain. Oh, blessed sorrow. What tears of repentance racked that conquered heart. That man, now changed, made a sacred vow. As he had spread lies about his master, so now he would spread the truth. And he prepared to go to his guru and cast himself at the Great One's feet. What high things he would promise, what greater things he would do to right past wrongs, how he would beg for forgiveness, knowing that he had it already, yet hardly daring to believe. It was as he was preparing to go to his guru that the news reached him. Paramahansa Yogananda had just passed away from this earth. Need I describe that man's grief? His heart, so lately repentant, with never an opportunity to show its new character. That man, so lately evil, now made a sacred vow. As he had spread lies about his master, so now he would spread the truth. As he had dissuaded people from his guru's path, so now he would labor to win them back. As he had labored to thwart his guru's efforts, so now he would dedicate his every remaining minute to serving the cause the guru had brought. The remainder of his life he served humbly, in obscurity, striving in countless little ways, since he considered himself unworthy of greater things, to compensate for all the wrongs he had done.
What a beautiful story.
It would take great love to win such a heart.
May divine love perfect the conquest of all hearts. For how many times all of us have offended God, whether through some act of selfishness or through fleeting pride or anger or even doubt. Would that we could work as hard to right our sins as that man did to right his.
You seem to have such a clear understanding of that man's life and character.
Understanding is born of experience.
Yet I'm sure you've never been as evil as that man.
No, perhaps not in this life.
Can you remember the past? You are speaking in riddles.
One's past lives may not always be consciously remembered, and yet they remain with him subconsciously and cast light on the present. Thus the past often gives one his current level of understanding.
Then you don't actually know that you were ever as evil as that man. Couldn't your understanding just as easily be rooted in compassion?
And whence comes compassion, think you? But let me finish the story I was telling. One day, shortly before that reformed sinner passed away, he sat in meditation and prayed to God in the form of his guru. Master, he said, I know that I'm not worthy of salvation, nor even of your least grace. And yet I have this one humble request to make of you, which you may see fit in your love to grant me. Grant me the power never to forget my countless wrongs to your sacred self. God usually hides our past lives from us so that we shan't be discouraged by old mistakes and failures. Yet this man's prayer was strangely granted. After death and in succeeding lives, he always remembered that one life of supreme injustice. Though the memory brought him pain, it kept burning within his heart the constant resolution to serve his guru's memory. And what happiness has come in that service, I ought to know.
Are you saying that...
That man was myself.
Yourself?
What a strange path you have walked, led first by hatred, then by love. Would that all men could shun the hatred, but embrace as great a love.
Darkness lends attractiveness to light. It is often through the painful results of sin or ignorance that men grow to love virtue.
Friend, when you first came up here, you said you were seeking something. Won't you tell us what it is? Are you just maybe seeking him?
Oh, do tell us if you are. You have said that he may be back. Have you any proof that he is?
Why else would you be wandering among these lonely mountains when your life is dedicated to his service?
3 years ago, this very night, I was attending a ceremony in commemoration of the Master's Mahasamadhi, The temple, lit only by dimly glowing candles, was vibrant with his spiritual presence. As I reverently laid a flower before his image, I was overcome by a divine ecstasy. A wondrous vision shone before me. No statue stood there. Instead, I saw my Guru. Around him were a group of devotees. On all sides were steep, snow-covered slopes, suggestive of a mountain. Guru and the devotees were seated on the ground chanting. After a few moments, he looked straight in my direction. That same smile of compassion softened his face that had touched it that day so many, many years ago. "Come," he said softly to me. "We are waiting for you." As that vision began to withdraw, I saw the mountain on which those devotees of God were sitting, and I knew that I should recognize it once again. These 3 years I've been seeking. Nothing, not rain nor snow nor darkness, has slowed my loving search.
Have you found any clues to his whereabouts?
Not yet, but I shall. Love will guide me to my destination.
I wonder if we can help you. What did the mountain look like?
Who can describe a mountain?
But couldn't you just give us a general idea?
Perhaps I could. The mountaintop was broken into several peaks or hillocks. In the center was a depression. It made me think, if anything, of an open flower, like those paintings one sees of a lotus.
Lotus
Mountain!
This very one we are standing on.
Oh, can it be?
It must be, surely. And what more auspicious night for you to find it than this one, the very night of his Mahasamadhi.
What a beautiful ending to your arduous search.
I am so deeply happy for you.
Love has guided us all. It has joined our paths with yours. Otherwise, you might have walked on into the night and wandered for who knows how many months or years. And we, while living in the shadow of this very peak, might never have known that on Lotus Mountain lives the jewel of our desires.
Oh, may you be right.
When dawn comes again, you will know with certainty.
Listen, the temple bells. Only 15 minutes until the ceremony begins. We'll have to hurry now to get there on time.
Oh, I suppose we ought to go. But how reluctant I am to leave this spot, thinking that here perhaps I'm at least closer to him whom I would now accept with my whole heart as my guru. Our flowers were picked to be laid before his mere image. How I would love to lay them before his living form.
It is late, and at least the image is a certainty. We'd better go.
Can we not persuade you to come back with us for one more night?
Thank you, but solitude is my brother. Meet me here tomorrow morning at dawn, however. Tomorrow we'll find what promise this mountain holds.
Tomorrow.
Listen.
What is it? The bells have stopped ringing.
No, not the bells. Listen. Don't you hear voices singing high up there, way up on the mountain?
I do hear voices.
So do I.
They're singing the very chant I heard in my vision 3 years ago this night.
Oh, Yogananda is up there.
What shall we do?
We picked these flowers to place before his image, but they were for him. Let us go tonight.
Oh, but the way is dangerous even by daylight. Our people never go up there.
Oh, they have no reason to go. Our longing to see our guru is our sufficient reason.
I know a part of the way, even by night. The moon will show us a part of the way, and our love will take us the rest of the way.
Our love will be a better lantern than the sun.
And God will give us all the strength we need.
Will you come with us, Romesh, Babu?
You see, my Guru Bhai, my brother, this is a very sudden change for me. I do believe in the Master now. I believe he is up there. I hardly know myself anymore. Please don't ask me to leap into an abyss. I may go up there later on when I've grown accustomed to these strange developments. Tonight, I shall go to the temple. I confess, I feel a little safer with images. They may look at one reproachfully, but at least they won't say anything.
Then, Dee Dee, you will stay with him, I suppose.
I am his wife. We go together. But perhaps in time we can both join you. In the meantime, what joy is my lot. I came here in bondage, afraid to do more than whisper my love for God. I leave now fortunate among women, with a husband who loves God and who shares all my deepest dreams. What more could I ask of life?
Narayan?
Father, all my life, I have longed to find God. He may be in money too, as you say, but the storyteller tells us he can be found most quickly through a guru. Would you mind terribly if you lost your prospective junior partner? I want to join them, Father. Life has no other meaning for me anymore. May I have your permission to go?
Go, son. Would that I were as free in my choice as you are. Come, we must hurry. It is only a few minutes until the ceremony begins. How can I thank you, friend? You have changed my life. My heart was like a stone, and now it's like a flowing fountain. May peace be ever yours.
Friend, aren't you coming with us?
I am coming, but please forgive me. I would rather come alone.
We know these parts better than you do.
Love has guided me this far. It will lead me safely to my destination.
Be it as you wish. We'll meet again, dear friend, at the Master's feet.
For alone I want to meet you now. My long exile has ended. You've called me to sit with those other blessed ones who love you. What can I say to express my gratitude? There are no angels dancing in the clouds tonight, no galaxies of saints to brighten my private celebration. The world's as plain and humble as it was this morning. Ah, but what angelic joy sings in my heart. Even the stars are dancing, and the trees, like holy saints, wave in blessing and nod with shining sympathy. My heart is too full. What words can it utter? Only silence can express the joy I feel.
Brother, the Master has sent for you. Please, follow me.
I'm coming. But what of those others who have gone seeking him?
They too will reach the Master tonight. But come, I know a shorter path. We shall reach him first.
I'm coming. Oh, can my heart contain its joy? What shall I say when I see my Guru? I shall look at him, this time with tears in my eyes, and I shall say, I love you always.